Welcome back to New Teacher Talk, the podcast where we talk honestly about what it takes to thrive in those early years of teaching.
I'm Quinzio-Zafran.
And I'm Beth Wilkins. We're officially kicking off the new season, and we're talking about the one topic that can change everything for you this year: procedures, specifically those first 10 days of school.
Beth, I have to tell you, when I think back on my own first year, the difference between a chaotic classroom and a calm one almost always came down to one thing. It wasn't the lesson plans. It wasn't the bulletin boards. It was whether students knew what to do when they walked through the door.
Exactly. And I think new teachers here set up procedures and they picture something rigid, kind of low-key boot camp vibes. That is not what we're talking about today.
Not at all. We're talking about freedom through structure. When students know exactly what's expected, you actually get more flexibility, not less, because you're not spending your energy putting out fires.
I agree. So let's dig in. Today, we're breaking down what those first 10 days should actually look like, procedure by procedure, and why front-loading this work pays off for the rest of your year.
Okay, Beth, let's start with something that trips people up right away. Procedures versus rules. Can you clear that up for our listeners?
Sure, I certainly can. Rules are the big picture expectations. Things like be respectful or be safe. Procedures are the how. How do you turn in homework? How do you line up for lunch? Rules tell students what matters. Procedures tell them what to actually do.
And here's the thing. A classroom can have wonderful rules posted on the wall and still be chaotic because nobody taught the students the actual steps.
That's right. You cannot discipline your way out of a procedural gap. If a student doesn't know where to put a late assignment, that's not a behavior problem. That's an instruction problem.
So, our first piece of advice for new teachers listening today: before you even think about consequences or rewards, map out every single transition and routine that happens in your room on a normal day.
I couldn't agree more. Here's some thoughts on that. Entering the room, turning in work, asking to use the restroom, group work transitions, packing up at the end of the class. Every single one of those needs a procedure, and every one of those procedures needs to be taught, not just announced.
That's where they get into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's really get practical. Walk me through what day one should look like if procedures are the priority in your classroom.
Okay, so here's some ideas. Day one, you are teaching entry and exit routines above almost anything else. How do you want your students to come into your room? Where do they put their things? What do they do the moment they sit down? Do they check a board, pick up a handout, something that gives them an immediate task?
That immediate task piece is so important. The first 30 seconds of class sets the tone for everything after for that day.
It really does. And then you practice it, not just explain it once. You actually have them do it, sometimes more than once, especially with younger students.
Oh, yes. So what about day 2 and day 3?
Day 2, start by layering in things like materials distribution and collection. How do you pass out papers without it turning into a free-for-all? How do you collect work? And day 3, you start introducing how you will signal attention, like a callback phrase or a hand signal, and how group work transitions will happen.
I want to highlight something you just said, Beth. The idea of a signal for attention. New teachers sometimes feel like raising their voice is the only tool they have. Having a consistent, quiet signal that you've practiced from day one saves your voice, saves your sanity, and keeps the vibe comfortable.
Exactly. It's one of the most underrated classroom management tools out there, Anna.
So let's talk about how you actually teach a procedure, because I don't think people realize that this is its own skill.
This is huge. The model I always come back to is explain, model, practice, give feedback. You explain what the procedure is and why it matters. You model it yourself or have a student model it. Then everyone practices it. And then you give specific feedback, not just, that good job, but rather, I noticed everyone push their chairs in quietly. That's exactly what we're going for.
And if it doesn't go well the first time,
You don't punish that. You just reteach it. Treat it like you would a math skill that you haven't mastered yet. If half the class forgot the procedure, that's data telling you to go back and practice again, not a behavior issue to write up.
that reframe alone can change a new teacher's whole year. Procedures aren't about catching students doing it wrong. They're about building muscle memory so the right thing becomes automatic.
And the payoff doesn't show up on day one. It shows up in week 6, and your classroom is still running smoothly because you put in that work early on.
So let's name a few procedures, Beth, that new teachers often forget to plan for because these are the ones that sneak up on you.
Okay, so what happens when a student finishes early? That's a huge one. If there's no procedure for that, you're going to have your fastest finishers wandering or distracting others within the first week.
So, what's your go to for that one?
For me, it's a simple, visible, what to do when you're done list or folder. It doesn't have to be elaborate, just something that gives them a next step without needing you.
What else?
I think 2 other areas include absences and makeup work. How does a student find out what they missed without interrupting your lesson plan to ask you directly? Is it a dedicated spot, a folder, a class website, something consistent?
And I'd add, what happens during a fire drill or emergency situation? New teachers sometimes don't walk through this until it's actually happening, and that's not the moment you want to be figuring out a procedure for the first time.
Mm, that one needs to be practiced ahead of time, just like anything else.
Beth, I think we should address something directly. New teachers listening to this might feel overwhelmed, like they need 20 perfect procedures by the first Monday.
That's such a fair point. You don't need every procedure nailed down before the first bell rings. Pick your highest priority routines, the ones that happen multiple times a day, and start there. Then you can add and refine as the year goes on.
And your procedures will need adjusting. What works for one group of students might not work for another.
Boy, that's well said, exactly. And that's not a failure. That's just teaching. The goal isn't a perfect system. It's a clear one that your students really understand and that you are willing to revisit.
I think that's the most important takeaway today. Procedures are a gift you give your future self. The time you invest in those first 10 days comes back to you tenfold for the rest of the year.
So, if you're heading into a new school year or even mid-year and realizing some of your procedures need a refresh, take this as your sign. Map out your transitions. Be sure to model how it should be done. And most importantly, give yourself grace while your students learn them too.
And we'd love to hear what procedures have made the biggest difference in your classroom. Find us on social media at New Teacher Talk and share your favorites with the community.
And if this episode was helpful, make sure you have subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next in the series.
And until next time, this is Anna
And Beth,
saying take care of yourselves.
and we'll talk soon.